Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Van Tassel, Wildlife Control Consultant, bringing you another episode of Living the Wildlife as part of the Pest Geek podcast family. So I'm really glad to have you with me. Don't forget to take a few moments, subscribe to our channel, and make sure you contact me if you have questions, concerns, issues you'd like to see covered in our Pest Geek podcast, Living the Wildlife. You can reach me at Wildlife Control Consultant at gmail.com. That's Wildlife Control Consultant at gmail.com. Well, today we have a very interesting guest, Bill Enderson. He is the general manager of the Rascal Eradicator. And you may be saying, what in the world is Rascal Eradicator? Well, it's a new product that uses carbon monoxide to kill vertebrate pests that are burrowing animals. And so you may have heard some other products that are out there in the market now because carbon monoxide is becoming the new thing in vertebrate pest control, and the technology is beginning to advance. So I saw his device and I thought, wow, that's really cute. I think that it had some flexibility. So I said, we got to get him on the show. And he was kind enough to be with us. Bill, welcome to the Living the Wildlife podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and glad to be here and talk about the Rascal Eradicator and help your people understand what it can do for you.
All right. Well, we're really glad to have you on the show. So take a few moments. Tell us about the Rascal Eradicator. Where did the idea come from? Describe the product for our audience.
Well, our founder is Willie the Burro. Willie was a 35-year-old burro that was Doc, who's one of the owners, burro. And Willie was in love with the potbelly pig next door and would run out of his stable every day in the morning, running past the prairie dog holes over to the fence to see if his friend was there. And so Doc realized that a 35-year-old burro really doesn't need to run an obstacle course. So he asked Billy Martin if Billy could do something about that. Now, Billy's the kind of guy that he had his own oil field business at 17. He had 5 drilling rigs.
Oh my goodness.
At 21. And so he's the kind of guy that looks at something and then says, I can do that. Wow. So 5 years later, and 200 hours of field work in several designs and a patent and an EPA registration, it was on the market.
That's amazing. So getting a little bit of feedback here. I'm not sure if that's me or you. So I'm just going to try to make a quick check here.
Okay.
It should be looking fine. I don't know where that's coming from. Well, sorry, everyone. Sorry for my interruption. So he's one of those handymen who just had skills with his hands and decided to develop this product. So what struck me about it was it looked like it had high mobility. Some of the other products on the market seem to be, I know one of them's fairly heavy, but there seemed to be mobility out on the landscape. I'm from Montana, and if you're in a more urbanized area, weight isn't as big of a deal because you're right there in the truck, and you probably get the truck close to the location, so you have to move it very far. But out here in Montana, mobility can be a little bit of a challenge, especially when you can't drive the truck everywhere. So talk about that a little bit more. Where does the engine fit on that thing?
Well, it's specially designed to just be in the middle, and it's designed so it doesn't roll over or tip over.
Okay.
And as far as mobility goes, that's a good point, because realistically, if you notice how big the casters are, we're kind of lazy people. We don't like to work more than we have to. So it's really designed. We tell people it's designed for one-handed movement. You can literally move it with one hand in the field. And wow. It's easy to move around. And people in the urban, rural interface areas like it too for that, because it's real easy to move around. Some people do put it in the back of their ATV, mm-hmm. or do put it in the back of their pickup truck. And so for those people, if you're doing that, we recommend the optional 50-foot hoses, because it gives you a little bit more room to do your perimeter without having to move it.
Right.
But
right.
It is easy to move. And that's one of the things that people like about it.
Yeah, because it has 4 tires, so it looked to me like a little wagon, and so that's what's mysterious. Because normally, when I think of a lawn mowing mower, it's like a Briggs and Stratton type thing.
It's 4 cycles.
But yours looked like it was very narrow, and I just was like, "Where's the motor? Where's the motor?"
Well, that's kind of an interesting question because our patent is what we call the resonator.
Okay.
So the carbon monoxide gas comes out of the motor, goes into a stainless steel tube, and we'll talk about why we have stainless steel later.
Okay.
Then it goes into the resonator, which is built inside the frame, and the carbon monoxide actually hits itself and it cools it and it makes it quiet. So if you sit there, I don't know why you'd want to do it, but if you sit there and listen to the end of the hose, you can barely hear it.
Nice.
And it comes out pretty cool. And we think that helps to help the process along because it doesn't alarm the rodents and they just get the carbon monoxide pumped down there and they attaches to the hemoglobin like it always does, and
right.
They just go to sleep and become part of the fertilizer.
Oh, okay, so let's talk about the kind of pressure you have coming out of it. So what kind of force is coming out of the other end? I mean, have you measured any of that in terms of how much gas is coming out?
It's not a pressurized unit.
Okay.
So there are ones on the market that do pressurized tanks.
Yeah.
And they're a lot more complex, a lot more expensive, and there's a lot more things that are inherent in using them. Right. This comes out and it just comes out as a flow and it goes into, we have two hoses and we like to build things so that they're tough because we know how people use them in the field because they use them like we use them.
Oh, yeah.
So it goes into either airplane grade aluminum nozzle, or if you're using the gopher crucifiers, what I call them, okay. They goes into a stainless steel nozzle with a handle on it that you can use as a probe if you're looking for your gophers too.
So you could use, that's for your pocket gophers.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right.
And that's how it gets in there, and we put them in, and then you cover them with dirt. And we like to tell people to kind of tamp it down so you get a nice seal. Mm-hmm. And then 7 to 12 minutes later, it's done. You can move things around while you're doing it. Most people set one up and then they go to the next hose, and then you do a perimeter.
Sure.
Usually either about a 50-foot perimeter or about a 96 to 98-foot perimeter.
So the animals you use it for are pocket gophers. I'm assuming ground squirrels, prairie dogs,
and moles.
And moles. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any data? So 7 to 12 minutes per hose. So you have two hoses, so you can do two different burrows at the same time.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And do you have and how much carbon monoxide is coming out? Have you had that measured? What your parts per million is?
Well, we use the data that's provided by the manufacturer for that engine. We have not done research on it ourselves.
All right.
It actually works out to 3,702 grams per hour, and that's based off of information from the California Environmental Agency Air Resources Board research.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we use the manufacturer's information.
Okay.
And it's toxic. It's sufficient to take care of the job.
Yeah, yeah. And so how do you? What do you have in terms of what's it cost?
The unit itself is $2,500.
Okay.
And that some people kind of go, oh, but when you look at the other carbon monoxide dispensers, we're in this kind of same range. Yeah. And we have two hoses instead of one, and it's really easy to boat around. And when you sit there and look at the operating cost, if you're operating efficiently and you're able to keep up a good pace, it literally works out with the fuel to about $0.10 a barrel.
Wow.
So, that's something that our PCOs like because it's low cost in operation. And it's low maintenance. You just basically for the engine. And the only thing we tell you is that in the wintertime, when you're not using it, take the hoses off it and don't put the hoses really tight and just store it inside. We don't like to see them. We got a guy that just leaves it out in the field.
Oh, no, you don't.
I told him, hey, put it in your shed, man. Oh, it's okay out there. It's fine.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do
Um,
that. No. So there's so 2500. So you're a mid range because I've seen them go as low as about
1800.
1200 up to 16,000, depending on
Yeah,
all the bells and whistles you get for
yeah,
what I call the Cadillac version.
the
So
large version.
so you have two hoses and you're using just regular gasoline. Do you have any smoke
Yep.
oil or anything like that with your
No,
product?
that's the smoke dispensers are a patented feature of one of our
I
competitors.
gotcha. Okay.
So
So
we don't.
are you able to see at the because one of the challenges is the whether holes are connected or not.
That's true.
So uh, are you able to see whether there's any gas coming out of another hole? Or just too far?
You might be able to.
Okay.
Generally, we find with prairie dogs that they're connected a lot less than people think they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're an expert. What do you feel like that? Do you feel
Well,
that?
I wish I wanted to do some research on that because I wanted to have some sort of a smoke generator, not toxic, just to see if burrows were connected or not, and because uh, I think there's some truth to that. There's a lot more single hole burrows or just two holes where there's just an entrance and exit. Well, depending which way the animal's moving in there. But the idea of moving beyond to 3 to 4, those are a little bit rarer. Maybe if the colony wasn't disturbed, but very few colonies are undisturbed nowadays. I mean,
Yeah,
there's like I don't know how the prairie dog's able to stand the pressure against them if it wasn't for their reproductive rate, because it's like a war on them all the time. But so I think there's a lot less. It's just that in terms of time, it's just you're always looking for a way to save that time
well,
from treating another burrow if you knew they were connected.
yeah. What we always tell people is treat the active ones. So if
Yeah.
you're out in the field there and you know the signs of the activity, you know the droppings, the diggings, the disturbance of the land around it. So we tell people to treat the active ones, and then the ones that are inactive, we usually suggest while you're out there, if there's an inactive hole over there, just go ahead and fill it in. You know, and so that you know when you go back to check your efficiency rating that that was a filled hole and there wasn't anything in it. So that's kind of what we have people do.
Yeah.
And I'm not a flag person. I use water-based marking paint,
Okay.
and I just X them out. And then that also tells me if there was a dig out or a dig in. Um, I, I'm not going to tell you the efficiency rates, but I'll tell you what our customers tell us.
Sure,
Our
absolutely.
customers tell us that the prairie dog rates are in the high 90s,
Okay.
and the gopher rates are in the mid 90s. So
Okay.
that's what our customers are telling us.
When you say gopher,
And
do you use pocket gopher?
yeah,
Okay, because the reason I have to ask, because here in Montana, gopher is kind of this really squishy word. It kind of is,
it
it's sort
is.
of like the
Could be the
Caddyshack thing.
Richardsons.
Is it a ground squirrel? Is it a
Yeah,
pocket gopher? What are you referring to? So I'm
yeah,
trying very hard to get our
yeah.
citizens to stop using the word gopher because I don't know what a gopher
Good
is.
luck.
Well, I've actually had some success with the extension educators. I'm getting them to
Good.
stop using the word gopher, at least to me.
That's good
So
people to start with.
yeah, so that's pocket gophers. You said about
Uh-huh.
above 80%, and
Yeah.
ground squirrels. Any,
Um,
any
I
data on
don't
that?
remember any talking to anybody about the ground squirrels recently,
Okay,
but we've never had anybody complain about them. You
okay.
know,
Now I've heard some wildlife control operators using these devices on voles, which is totally blowing me away because I'm
well,
like, they're so porous, but guys are telling me that they have success, which totally blew my mind. Have you had any people using your product? I know you're still new, so I'm putting you on the spot here. Like you haven't had your
um,
distribution out there for a while,
I
but
would. I would love to say that both vole tests we did were successful, but
okay.
I'm not going to say that.
Yeah. So
It,
do you think
it
that it was
we
porous? The soil was too porous in your situation because maybe a more clayey soil would be a little bit more effective.
Well, the vole areas that we did were both high end golf courses
Okay.
in Northwest Colorado.
All right.
and the voles were almost on the surface. I mean, the
Okay.
tunnels were like partially up above the surface,
Yeah.
and it was very sandy and very loose. So
Yeah.
it was not successful.
Types. Well, I would, yeah, appreciate your frankness there, and I would. It's
I'd
like,
love to talk to those people.
yeah, I think that there's been, of course, our soil here in Montana. We know we have some sandy soils too, but I've talked to some guys and beyond Montana. I think you get on some of the Facebook pages that would encourage you to do that. Some of these guys are
Yeah.
experimenting; they're having success, which is kind of blowing my mind a little bit.
Oh wow.
So they're using some of the other devices because yours is relatively new.
Mhm.
When did you come to market?
Well, we've been in business for 10 years,
Okay.
and basically about the last 3 years, we've been in higher production than they were before.
Okay.
So we basically been we have them in 28 different states now, and so we have pretty good distribution of them. And we
Okay.
have them in everything from sandy soil in Indiana to rocky desert soil in Tucson, to high plains grazing soil up by Pawnee Buttes and over by Sterling.
Okay.
So we have them in a lot of different things. The only place that we had problems with was a gentleman in Oregon. We follow up on our sales. So I call somebody in 2 days and I call them in 2 months. I just want to make sure that they're doing well. And after 2 months, he said it wasn't working, and I'm like, what? And so what we figured out was that the ground that he was in, there was so many cracks. He's actually sent it to me. It was actually looked like it was like just totally cracked, and the gas was not being able to be efficient in there.
Wow.
So he's
in the
back.
the western end of those states.
He's in the far east of Oregon.
Excuse me, eastern end, right? That's more desert area. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but the Snake River Valley. Okay. So he went back in the spring and just kicked it. Okay. So he was pretty happy with it.
A little more moisture. Yeah.
Moisture in the soil was a little bit better. So
wow.
But that's really the only person that I was just shocked. And we tell people, we answer our phone 24/7, and if they have problems, we're there. We get calls from the Gopher people in Tucson in the middle of the night. Hey, how you doing? Sleeping. Well, it's working really good, man. We're doing good. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I'm wondering how much longer that 24-hour response time is going to work.
I do it. So they're good guys. So they have a lot of success doing they do a lot of common areas for homeowners associations, and a lot of golf courses down there, and they've really enjoyed it.
Are you aware of any states that regulate the product in the sense that requiring a license?
Well, there's some states like Colorado and Montana that you do not need a PCO license. You don't need a license for.
That's correct.
However, you do have to abide by the regulations that are in effect. So,
yeah, we have none in our state, and I understand in Colorado there are some guidelines for how close you can get to a structure. That's the only regulation that I saw with the devices, and I tried to get those regulations here because I think they're reasonable for safety purposes.
They are, but the regulations in this is regulations right here.
Okay,
and those regulations pretty much establish that there's certain distances that you need to be away from an occupied building.
Yeah, there
are special ways that a PCO can go closer, and that involves monitoring inside the buildings, and of course they're not occupied.
Right.
So there are special regulations that enable PCOs to go closer.
Oh, okay, all right.
So it's kind of murky, and we just tell people, you have to check your local regulations.
Yeah,
and the EPA, ours is registered as the EPA as a pest control device because we voluntarily did that.
Sure.
And it's also patented.
Okay.
And
my point is, you're not aware of any state that requires a PCO license to use it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You have to check with your local people.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any.
I'm not either. Utah is the same way. It's not.
Yeah. So it's but absolutely you want to check. But I do think now, do you have guidelines in your brochure, in your manual, for how close a person should get to a structure?
No, we don't. We just basically refer to people that you need to check your local regulations.
Gotcha.
We say that a lot because you want to make sure that you're doing the correct thing. You don't want to run it incorrectly. And since it does produce carbon monoxide, you have to be careful because it is a gas that has a very detrimental effect on human beings.
Oh, absolutely.
And the people that called me and said that it doesn't work on in-laws, I was like, well, if your in-law has fur and big teeth and lives in a burrow, yes. Otherwise, no.
Yeah,
Please,
that's correct. That's a different department, as I tell people, right? So you don't have any recommendations for people that have no local law, no local rules. Like in Montana, we have no guidelines for how close you can get to a structure. Do you have? There's nothing in your
Well,
manual?
I would say personally, I think these are pretty good guidelines.
Okay, so you follow Colorado. If you don't have guidelines, follow Colorado's. Yeah, I thought they were reasonable. I think it was like 100 feet for pocket gophers and 25 or 30 feet for ground squirrels, and I think 50 feet for prairie dogs.
150 for prairie dogs.
150 for prairie dogs. Okay, yeah. So that's very reasonable, and you can usually treat with other things closer if you have to, or you can trap. That would be very reasonable.
We have a lot of people now that are a lot of pest control companies and a lot of wildlife control companies that are using them in areas that it's much easier acceptance of carbon monoxide, and it's easier to do. And our units are very discreet, and so that they attract very little attention. Like if you were in a field that was being treated next to a King Soopers and an apartment development, it's doesn't attract a lot of attention, and it's really efficient, and you don't run into secondary bait problems.
That's right.
And one of the things that we like to have people remember is that this is pretty much a one and done. And people might say, well, baiting takes a little bit less. You still spend probably 2 to 4 minutes a hole on bait, right?
Yeah. Well, it would depend on how you're baiting. Yeah, it would depend on how you're baiting, because with zinc phosphide you have to visit at least twice. So you have to have a pre-bait
twice,
and you have to go back with the zinc, and then it may be 3 times because some of the labels are now requiring a pre-test. But that you don't have to go to every hole for a pre-test. So you have to make a few visits,
and then follow up afterwards.
To see if it worked for you, sure. But there's but you don't have to do any field work like with Rosol, where you have to do a grid search on the field for when you're using it on prairie dogs. Yeah. So there's definitely some huge advantages. The fact you don't have, if someone's dog's dead 5 days later, well, it wasn't you, it was something else, right? So there is definitely some advantages there, and you don't have to worry about something being left behind where you would with toxicant.
We have a customer that uses them at a summer camp.
Nice.
And he was using bait for the moles, the little worms.
The little worms, yeah.
And local dogs found them.
Really? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And then the state came in and said, "You're not going to do this. This is a summer camp. You're not going to use bait."
No kidding. Wow.
And so he's real happy with it now.
Okay.
He's doing fine.
No kidding. So, all right. Why did the dogs be after? Yeah, free dogs is a real problem.
They dug it up.
They dug it up. Yeah.
Yep. One of the other things that I really like, you were talking talking about how mobile it is. We have customers that use them where larger units or there's like terrain problems.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that we just put on there, we like safety, and like I said, we don't like to do too much work. So we put lift handles on the front and back.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to get them in your pickup truck or your ATV. And we didn't increase the price because that's a safety issue.
Okay. And how much does it weigh?
With the 25-foot hoses, it weighs in at 112.
Okay.
With the 50-foot hoses, it weighs in at 132.
Okay.
So, and your analogy about the size of a kid's wagon is pretty true.
Yeah, just when I was seeing it, I only saw photos of it. There was no scale in it other than I think a person was in the photo, and wow, that just it kind of looked cute, and just in terms of that low profile, because the tires are what, 6-inch tires, 12-inch tires?
The tires are 10-inch.
10-inch tires. So you can get over stuff with it because you have a higher diameter. Just that, you have to think about this stuff when you're out in the, because Montana is different than, but Massachusetts and other places. I'm used to being from Massachusetts. So, when you're out here, you've got to get over stuff. So, the ground isn't always perfectly level the way you would like it to be, perhaps. So you got to get over things. And that matters because it's all about the convenience, because pest control, the one thing they don't have is the ability to multiply themselves. So they have to make their time as efficient as possible, right? It's not like factory work where you can, have a machine cranking out more widgets. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah. So where do people purchase your product?
Our product is found at our website, which is Rascal.
Yeah, hold that picture right up for people, because let people get a picture of it. Yeah, and even the base.
In my face, huh?
Well, no, and so we got that. Okay, but then lift it up so they can see the device, though, in case they may not have seen it before.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's not a good picture, but
it's not, but at least it gives them a feel for what it's like, and that's like.
So here's your handle over here, and here's your hose rack, and it's as simple as it looks, and it has we use the Briggs & Stratton Easy Pull engine.
Okay.
So if it takes 2 pulls to pull it, it's a bad day.
Bad day. Okay.
The other thing that's kind of good about it is that unlike some carbon monoxide dispensing units, you can use it in any temperature you want. You can go I tell people, as long as you can stand being in the field, you can use it.
Right. Okay.
So there's no temperature requirements as far as it's too hot or it's too cold.
4-cycle or 2-cycle?
It's a 2-cycle.
2-cycle. So even with the oil that you have to put in with the gasoline, you're still not seeing.
Excuse me, 4-cycle.
4-cycle. So okay. Yeah. Any thought of moving to a 2-cycle?
No.
No.
We purposely picked this engine because it produces carbon monoxide like we need.
Okay.
And it's a very easy engine to start, and it's a very durable engine. And let's say you have as a PCO, you have a 6-month warranty on everything except for the hoses.
Okay.
And we honor our warranty. If there's a question, you got to call us.
All right.
And so we find that, let's say that in the future, which we haven't had to replace any engines yet, and some of these machines literally run 8, 10, 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
People are running them that much. Yeah. So we haven't had to replace any engines yet, but the engine is basically, it's a stock engine that you basically can buy from Briggs & Stratton or us. Yep. And you basically unbolt it, bolt it back in, attach the hose, and you go. Yeah. It's that easy. We made it so that we know how people are going to use it in the field, and we want to make sure that it lasts them. It has a lot of the fixtures are stainless steel or brass, which you don't see in a lot of places.
Right.
And we use a special hot water, high density hoses that are very, very durable. And it's black powder coated, so it looks kind of cool, I think.
Okay. And how flexible are they?
They're pretty flexible. They do kink, so we don't tell people don't get kinky with them.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's clever. That's clever.
Most people, when they put them in the field, they honestly leave them out behind them. Like, let's say you're going to a new spot, they just leave them behind them and just haul the whole thing right along, and then they use the hoses to establish where the perimeter is,
Right.
and say, okay, that was the last one I did. Now I'm in this area.
Right. Okay.
It works out pretty good.
So they move they drop the hose, and then they move the device to see how far it goes, and then they start moving toward the device, and then they probably go beyond it and then leapfrog. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I was going to mention too that we do have several operators that operate more than one in the field.
Okay.
And I don't want to make more work for somebody's employees.
Sure.
But you can easily do 2 units. One person can take care of 2 units and still have time left over to play on their phone. So,
with a 7 to 12 minute injection time. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Cause then you can really be just having one going and you're moving another. And then, so you're keeping occupied that way. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it cuts down on operators' costs that way. And when you consider the price of them, it makes it comparable, for ease of use and the size of it to maybe use that as an alternative to a larger unit.
Sure, absolutely.
And we also have people that are running the larger units out there and using our machines to go around the perimeters or go in places that are difficult. They don't want to end up bogged down or tipped over.
Yeah, so more of like a little tactical unit to be able to hit those.
We have all kinds of people using them.
Yeah. So you said you were at stainless steel.
Yeah.
Why did you have?
We have all kinds
of stainless steel.
The stainless steel. We have the stainless steel hose we have the stainless steel hose that comes off the engine and it goes into the resonator. And we use stainless steel there because there's a heat problem and corrosion problem, and we want our people to be able to use this thing year after year after year. And they do. And
how long can someone use the engine before they need to change the oil and perform regular maintenance?
You have to follow the instructions in your book.
Okay.
We give you 2 manuals. We give you our manual and we give you the Briggs & Stratton manual. So
gotcha.
We ask people to do it using the manufacturer's suggested.
So because it's a standard engine, any type of lawn repair lawnmower repair company, you can bring it then and say, hey, change the oil, and they're not going to be like, we don't know what this is. They're going to go straight away to it. Okay.
Yeah. You can bring it to your local Briggs & Stratton people.
Yeah.
And we cover it. We do pretty well on warranties. We don't cover people dropping them off of the back of trucks at 20 miles an hour.
Right. Okay. Sure. Well, that's an important distinction. So let's talk a little about what is the thing that a customer doesn't know that should know before they purchase the product, and then what is the one thing you find that a lot of times they're surprised by with the product?
Well, I think a lot of them are surprised by how easy it is to use, because I do demos for people sometime, and I take it out there and put the hoses on it. It's ready to go. If we're shipping it to you, that's the only thing you have to do is put the hoses on it, fill it full of oil, fill it full of gas, give it a tug, and you're ready to go.
Right.
So I take it out and I put it in the holes and stamp the holes, start it up, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, that's it?
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the way it'll work, And most people want to know, like, why they should use carbon monoxide. And there's good reasons for it, And our units, I wouldn't go, if I had a 10,000 acre project, I probably wouldn't use our units.
Right.
But we do have several people that use them on their property for 400 or 600 acres.
Yeah.
And usually what they do is go through and do the control, and then they just leave it in the back of their ATV or something. And then every month or two they go out and just keep the perimeter safe and make sure that everything is, they don't get reinvaded, because it's reinvasion is kind of the way it goes.
Yeah, as I tell people, all problems come from your neighbors. So it's never your problem. They're never your ground squirrels. They're never your prairie dogs. They're always the neighbors. And so it's just the way it is. So, and
yeah,
a good laugh.
That's true. And they don't want to do anything about it.
That's right. And so it's always your neighbor's problem. It's never yours. It's always your neighbor's. So how about, so yeah, I think that there's a lot of advantages in terms as people are growing concern about, the secondary effects of anticoagulants and some of the toxic effects of toxicants. And plus people have a comfortableness, do you think, with carbon monoxide because it comes out of our automobile, unless you have a battery machine, and that's pretty rare. But I mean, you're around carbon monoxide all the time, and so it's I guess there's that, you don't have that same fear factor that people can often have at aggressively so in some cases with toxicants. And do you think that's part of the reason why there's a greater comfort level with clients with carbon monoxide?
I think so. And even the American Humane Society called it the least unobjectable method for euthanasia.
Wow.
So
that is that's quite a compliment, because I'm sure that was painful for them.
It was. And it's really true, because they just basically just go to sleep and they become fertilizer. And so that's kind of one of the things. And we find that in like a lot of people that we have them are using them in like the urban rural interface areas, and they don't get much attention. And when people are explaining to them, what they're doing, most people are like, oh, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think plus they know there's no residual. So I think that really means a lot, because I've been hearing reports from people. They're like, they want to kill something, but they're very nervous about the secondary poisoning and the residuals, because again, it's people aren't leashing their dogs, they're leaving. And then some people have concern about raptors and this sort of thing. And like, well, this is one of the challenges with toxicants. And so you have to, there's always pros and cons for everything. And so I think this is that niche product. I think you're right. 10,000 acres would be a lot of time at 7 to 10 minutes a burrow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So, but for those smaller acreages, if people want to put the time in, and it's all about what the client wants and be able to meet that need for them.
Yeah.
So you have, people can purchase it directly from you. What's the shipping cost on that? Is there a shipping?
Well, generally, most places in the U.S. are under $170. We ship for that ground, and generally it'll get to you in 3 days.
That's not bad. That's not a bad price for given that it weighs 100. And so is it crated? Is it some sort of wooden box, or is it
It comes in a cardboard box, and the wheels are on it, and it takes you about 3.5 minutes to assemble it.
Nice.
And then you need to put about 18 to 22 ounces of oil in it, fill up the gas, prime it 3 times, and away you go.
Wow, that's incredible.
Read the manual, too. I wanted you to
read the manual, everybody. Definitely, don't read the manual first. Make sure everything's good, and do teach your people about carbon monoxide, that if you start getting a headache in the field, something's wrong. Maybe there's a leak somewhere that you're not aware of. That's one of the first signs of carbon monoxide poisoning, is getting a headache. So
it's a powerful material, it really is.
Yeah.
And I think that people are coming around to it because, like you said, there's no residual. And we have customers that use it in areas that they're doing transition from standard crops to organic crops. Now, no carbon monoxide device can be used for organic materials strictly because of the way that it's created, because it's created in an internal combustion engine.
Right.
So, I'm sure if you wanted to like make a fire and blow it in there, that would be okay to those people, I'm guessing. So there's a market for somebody,
Yeah, it would be. I think that the
It's,
organic people, it's unfortunate that the carbon monoxide didn't
I think it would be a good
make
use.
it. It didn't make it. I think the same thing with the rodentinator. I think that came really close to making it, but it was off by a vote or two. I think, from what I understand, it's. I think the organic people are going to have to kind of make some. They make concessions in some areas. They're going to
That's
need
right.
they're going to need to think about the vertebrate side of things more, especially if we're going to larger acreages. It's very
Hmm.
difficult for producers to put a fence up. When you think of the cost of putting a fence up and the environmental impact of a fence, a lot of people think that
Sure.
fences are non-lethal. Well, not quite. They're quite disruptive to the environment in many ways.
Yep.
So I would hope that they would explore that. Maybe somebody can come up with a, a valid way for the present rules of organic farming to create carbon monoxide. And yeah, I mean, making a wood fire, it seems pretty inefficient, not to mention the carbon that would be out there. But I don't know. But also the fire hazard. We're a fire hazard
Yeah.
state here in Montana. So
Oh yeah. Everything
just to let
burns.
everybody know that when you use the ignitable gas cartridges, the main active ingredient is carbon monoxide, folks. And
Yeah.
so basically, this removes the fire element because it's contained in
Sure.
the combustion engine. Whereas I tell people when they're using the ignitable gas cartridges, make sure you're not setting the prairie on fire. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like bad. We don't want that. So
We
it's
actually we actually have underneath the engine. There's actually a guard underneath the
heat
engine.
guard, heat shield.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important because out here in the West, it doesn't mean you hear producers starting fires all the time from their
Sure.
tractors, and there's a spark created because they're dragging something. And it's kind of weird to me because I'm still getting used to it. Being in the East, forest fires is like, what are you talking about? Why are you having all these fires? Come out here. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I get it now. It's dangerous. It gets really, really dry. Well, what's the last, any final words that you want to leave for our people? I would love you to hold that card up one more time so I
Okay.
can read off or actually let you do it. Give them a phone number that they can use and
Sure.
go ahead.
Phone number is 303-910-9106. And yes, I do answer at any time.
That's amazing. All right.
And our website is www.rascaleradicator.com. We got lots of interesting things in there, and you got a little video so you can see how we're doing it. And just want to remind people that for the PCOs, it costs you about a dime a burrow to take care of this.
That's truly amazing. Well, everyone, any final words you want to leave for our audience before we close it out tonight?
Just thank you very much for having me on, and check out our website and give us a call.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And this is Bill Enderson, everyone. He's the general manager of Rascal Eradicator, and that's rascaleradicator.com. And you can visit them, let them know that you heard us from the Pest Geek podcast, Living the Wildlife.
Please.
We are very glad to have you on board here, and definitely stay in touch. If you come up with some new materials, definitely reach out to us again. Maybe we'll have to do another show. And if you do any additional research on your project, definitely love to hear that. We love getting geeky here on the Pest Geek podcast. Well, that's going to be it. We're going to wrap it up here.
I'd like to ask one question too.
Sure.
If somebody's out there with a carbon monoxide unit and they're having success with voles, give me a call because I'd like to hear about it.
Well, you heard that, everyone. So I've heard it anecdotally, and I think that if you joined us on Facebook, some of our groups, I think the National Wildlife Control Operators group would be one.
We're in the society
in that one, and you also can go to the Pest Geek podcast and join our group. And there's also some others out there we can certainly chat about. But there are people who are claiming success, which, like I said, totally blows.
I'm interested.
Totally blows my mind. Well, this is your opportunity, people, to help out, to help everyone work together, because we are in this together. We're a very small community. When you think about other industries, there's not a lot of pest controllers out there, even though it may feel that way. They're not. They're really not. So we got to help each other. Thank you very much for being on the show. And again, everyone, I'm Stephen Van Tassel, wildlife control consultant. You can reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. Take a few moments, drop me an email, tell me how the show is going. If you have ideas for future broadcasts, definitely reach out to me. And even if you have criticisms, tell me what you don't like. I'll take that criticism as well. Take a few moments, subscribe to the show. And remember, everyone, we want you to live the wildlife. Why? Because we want you to live the wildlife, not be the wildlife. Take care, everybody.